Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode from Your Own Pathway Leadership and Mental Wellbeing in the Workplace. For those who don't know me, my name is Paya. I'm a trained psychotherapist, turned empowerment life coach, and organizational leadership consultant, where I bring my skills, my expertise, and my knowledge to empower all of you to forge your own path and to own it. So, I hope you all are having a wonderful day and a wonderful week. And as I'm filming this episode, it is September. And I love the month of September. I don't know about all of you, but I love September because I love fall. And I definitely feel the shift in the air. And so, in honor of September, I don't know if a lot of you are aware of this or not, but the month of September is also National Suicide Awareness Month. And I know that this is a very, very sensitive and can also be a very triggering topic for a lot of people, especially for those who have lost someone via suicide. And if you have my condolences to you, and honestly, as a therapist, doing trauma, grief work, I've also actually worked with a lot of this in the workplace also. And that's why I wanted to do this episode to really educate leaders and managers and supervisors about this topic because often more than not, when someone is not doing mentally well, the first place that it is going to show up, it is at work, where people who used to probably thrive or be very involved or be very on it, work is often the first place where they start showing signs that they're not doing mentally, emotionally, psychologically well. And that's why I wanted to do this episode today, is to really educate anybody out there, especially leaders, on how to help and how to recognize these signs if your employee is going through a hard time, and how you can help them during this tough time. And sometimes how you show up and how you treat your employees can make a huge difference. I will say that as an EAP therapist, when I worked in EAP, Employee Assistance Program, unfortunately, I did have a handful of supervisors and managers and leaders who came to therapy because they lost an employee um, via suicide, and they were there to really process their grief, their loss, and oftentimes their guilt. I think that when anybody loses someone this way, there's a lot of guilt for a parent, friend, employee, whoever it is who this person was. A lot of times, like, I should have known, I should have seen, I could have done more, I could have done this. And so there's a lot of guilt. And so my episode today is to really just educate leaders to see the signs, and if they see the signs, on what they can do to help their employees. And this episode today, I want to come in from a very educational, compassionate, no judgment, no shame for anybody who's going through this or who has lost someone via suicide, and to just really have an open conversation about this, because there's still, unfortunately, a lot of stigma related to this topic. And so that's why I wanted to do this episode today. So let's get right into this episode today. If you're a leader, supervisor, or in a leadership role, I want you all to pause for a moment. The truth is, Suicide Awareness Month isn't just a conversation for therapists, doctors, or crisis workers. It also belongs in your workplace also. You're probably questioning, but why, Paia? Because the culture that you create can protect your people or push them closer to the edge. And I'll add more onto this. I want to say that workplaces, oftentimes, okay, workplaces are not just the places where people are not doing well. It's the person, the environment, and everything eventually piles for that person to be unwell. And so I'm going to get more into that. And again, the culture that you create in the workplace can either protect your people or again push them closer to the edge. And ignoring ignoring how it is at work won't go away. So today we're going to talk about suicide awareness at work and why leadership responsibility can literally make the difference between life and death. The first part about this episode is, why does all of this matter? Why does this matter? Here's the truth. Most of us spend our waking hours at work more than anywhere else. If someone is struggling, you're not just their manager, you're often their first witness to their silence, to their burnout, to their withdrawal. And suicide is not just a personal crisis, it's a public health concern. And the workplace is one of the most first lines of defense where all of this is happening. Again, I want to be clear that work is not always the main source of someone's mental health struggles. Trauma, grief, family stress, financial hardship, or illnesses or anything else may weigh heavier. But because work is where most people spend so much of their time, many of the warning signs show up there first. And again, leaders, if you are watching this, you as a leader are often in the unique position of noticing changes in behavior or behaviors. Sometimes, the employee may stop speaking up. The one who used to show up early may now drift in late, call in sick, or maybe this is a person who suddenly seems very disconnected from everything and everyone around them. And at the same time, work can also exasperate what somebody is already carrying. And again, like I said, work may not be the main stress, but issues and stressors at work may exasperate what somebody is already carrying. A demanding or toxic workplace doesn't cause depression or suicidal thoughts on its own, but it can make an already fragile situation worse. For example, micromanagement, lack of flexibility, microaggressions, discrimination, and endless pressure to perform can compound a person's sense of hopelessness and helplessness. On the flip side, a healthy, compassionate workplace can be a huge protective factor. For some people, work may be the only place where they have a routine, connection, or even a reason to get out of bed. If you, as a leader, make that space for one to have dignity and care, you may literally be helping someone stay alive. And I know that as I say all this, it sounds like such a huge responsibility. Leaders, like to talk about productivity, results, outcomes, KPIs, but behind every KPI is a human being. And when that human feels invisible, overworked, or devalued, the risk isn't just turnover. Unfortunately, often it's tragedy. That's why this conversation matters at work, because whether you acknowledge it or not, leadership shapes life or death outcomes. And I know that this is a heavy burden to carry. And this is not to shame, this is not to judge anyone, workplaces. This is how you can create a safe place. Be aware so that you can help your employees or anybody else who is going through this. So, what are the warning signs that leaders may miss when someone is not doing emotionally or psychologically well? First of all, signs don't always scream. They oftentimes they whisper. For example, a once engaged employee goes quiet, or a high performer suddenly disengages, or someone jokes too often about not being here much longer. Or maybe they start missing deadlines, withdrawing from meetings, or giving away responsibilities. Too often, leaders label these changes as laziness, lack of motivation, or a bad attitude. But here's what's important to understand: changes in behavior are often clues, not character flaws. So, moving on, some of the most common warning signs that leaders may overlook can include withdrawal. Employees may stop joining conversations, turn off cameras in virtual meetings, or isolate from colleagues. Maybe there's a drop in performance, missed deadlines, declining in work quality, or loss in interest in projects they once enjoyed. Mood shifts. You may notice mood shifts such as like irritability, unusual anger, or flatness that doesn't match their usual personality. Sometimes they may make hopelessness or burden statements. They may make comments like, "Oh, what's the point?" or "You'll be all better off without me," or just things that they usually don't say. These they may come off as jokes, but they're actually red flags. Um, Another big thing is physical changes. Maybe noticeable in being fatigued, lack of energy, frequent absences, or changes in appearance and self care. I can give an example of this. I had someone, I was working with someone who would always put in a lot of pride in their appearances. And when they started feeling down, depressed, and hopeless, they really didn't care about their appearance. It was almost like they had this like disheveled look. And so this wasn't like them. And, someone who takes pride in their appearance and how they look, and not starting to care how they look, that's like a total 180. And so changes in physical appearances is a huge noticeable one. Another thing is risk taking behaviors, or like being reckless. Maybe there's an increase of mistakes, cutting corners, or behaviors that seem really out of character. Now, the things that I mentioned are just a few things. And of course, these are real generalizations. And each person, may present with different symptoms. And so, again, these are the major ones that are most noticeable. And again, here's where leaders often miss is Many people who are struggling will mask it with humor, perfectionism, or overworking. That high performer who's suddenly working late every night, they may not be dedicated. They may be hiding. Again, every situation is so different, and so it's hard to pinpoint what exactly. And so again, all of this is very generalization information that I'm giving all of you. Another thing is awareness. Awareness means that you can't just measure performance. You need to notice patterns, pay attention to shifts, and lead with curiosity instead of criticism. When something feels off, don't brush it away. The one conversation that you as a leader could be the lifeline that someone needs. And so, what leadership, like, what is your responsibility as a leader? And how does this look like? First thing is being compassionate. Compassionate leadership isn't just about being nice, it's about responsibility. And here is what compassionate leadership looks like. Check in, just don't call out. Instead of saying, hey, you're missing deadlines, try, I've noticed you're not yourself lately. Are you okay? That simple shift can open a door instead of shutting it for your employees. I think one of the most important things that you can do as a good and compassionate leader is create psychological safety. And I'm going to be honest, as someone who has worked in corporate mental health, that is the number one thing that a lot of employees are saying is there's a lack of psychological safety in the workplace. And when you create psychological safety, people should not fear punishment for speaking up about their struggles. If employees know they won't be ridiculed, ignored, or sidelined for sharing their mental health concerns, they are more likely to ask for help. They're more likely to ask for help. Okay. Another thing is know your resources. Know if there is an employee assistance or program, or ask them or tell them to talk to HR, or what programs are there through HR, and if mental health benefits exist. But only if leaders actually actively point people toward these resources, their employees towards them. Don't just mention a resource in a handbook because, when you're depressed and you're feeling down, the last thing you're going to damn do is go look at a book with resources, okay? And so let's normalize using and knowing your resources. Such an important thing is to lead by example. And, I know that some leaders don't feel comfortable sharing their personal struggles or their personal lives. And yeah, it's share what is comfortable. Share what is comfortable, self disclose at what you're comfortable with. Maybe if you're comfortable, share your own experiences about stress or therapy or burnout, because vulnerability gives permission and really chips away at the stigma of mental health. I talk about this all the time. I'm all about this. Your own pathway, own it. The foundation is boundaries. Protect boundaries. Most importantly, I think, especially here in America, we're all so overworked, and we should not be rewarding burnout or 70 work hour weeks. Yes, I know that sounds insane, but a lot of people work 70 to 80 hours a week. I don't know how, but and this is often seen as a badge of honor. It is so important for you as a leader to model balance. And you can do this by respecting people's evenings, weekends, after hours, vacation time, PTO, maternity, paternity leave. I kid you not. Some people have been on leave, maternity, paternity leave, and they get yeah, they get contracted by their manager. It's like, nope, nope. You have to protect your boundaries, okay? And sometimes the most caring leadership move or what you can do is to encourage rest. Okay. Another important thing is train your managers. Train your managers. Oftentimes, the direct supervisors are the ones that notice the changes, and they're the frontline workers. Frontline workers or leaders are the most first, again, touch point. Equip them with the skills to recognize warning signs and respond with empathy, and know when to escalate to HR or professional help. Lastly, please follow up. Just don't drop it off. If someone shares that they're struggling, check back in. Too often, leaders have one conversation and then they move on. Ongoing support shows care is not just a checkbox. So, responsibility means this: you don't have to be a therapist. Nobody's asking you to be a therapist, but you do have to be human. Leadership responsibility is all about recognizing the influence that you hold and using it to make the workplace where people can feel seen, supported, and safe. So, I think with mental health and even talking about this topic is still, there's so much shame, misunderstanding, and stigma. And so it's important, especially you as a leader in the workplace, to really shift, have all this mental health, well being, and this topic. And we need to shift from stigma to safety. Again, too many workplaces feel and still treat mental health like a weakness or worse, a liability. But here is the truth: ignoring mental health causes more. Yes. Ignoring mental health causes companies more money. Why? Because it costs you your talent, your innovation, your retention, and especially if someone loses their life. Shifting from stigma to safety means moving beyond the lip service. And I know there's so much lip service out there right now. Like, oh, we're a company. We care about you. We do this. We're all about balance. We all want you to take care of yourself. And it's all lip service. And when employees try to do that, they get reprimanded. So, lip service is not enough. To poster about wellness or a once a year seminar or, an app. Okay, and an app helps. But what are you actually doing about it in the workplace? Employees know when your culture is performative. Mhm. What they need is consistency. And so, how does consistency look like? Well, this is how it looks like. Number one, normalize conversations. When leaders openly talk about stress, therapy, or struggles, it signals that mental health is part of the human experience, not something to hide. Number two, have policy with heart. And what this means is offer flexible schedules, realistic workloads, and honoring time off is not a perk. These are lifelines for people who are especially struggling mentally and emotionally. Leadership. Good leadership has accountability, and accountability at the top. And so what this means is that senior leaders, You are the ones who are setting the tone. If the C-suite models, if they, if you are an executive and if you are in the C-suite and you model compassion, it filters down. If you are a, executive and you model burnout and silence, guess what? It's going to trickle down and it's going to feel that way too. Another important thing is listening without judgment. When an employee shares, don't rush to solutions or minimize their pain. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do as a leader is simply hold space and listen. I know that we live in a culture where it's all about problem solving, solution focus. You can do this, you can do that, jump to like, helping. And sometimes somebody just wants you to listen, hold space for them without judgment. Yes. And so hold space, have compassion, listen, just don't hear, listen. And let's be clear, shifting to safety doesn't just benefit the struggling individual or individuals, it transforms the whole workplace. What safety does is safety creates innovation, safety also fuels trust, safety also builds loyalty, and people thrive. People thrive when they know that they won't be punished for being human. So, leaders, the shifts in your hands, okay? Culture is not just built on slogans, because honestly, we hear slogans all the damn time. It's built by what you protect, what you reward, and what you allow. So, lastly, leaders, pay attention. Suicide awareness in leadership, it's not about knowing all the answers or becoming someone's therapist again. It's about choosing compassion over silence, presence over productivity, and especially in America, I know this one is hard, but people over profit. If someone you lead is struggling, you might be the one safe place that they have left. Be the leader who saves lives, not just the one whose culture destroys them. Because at the end of the day, titles and profits fade. But the one person that you made feel, that lasts forever. Your legacy won't be built on quarterly reports. It will be built on whether people could breathe under your leadership, whether they feel safe enough to bring their whole selves, whether they walked away alive because of you. And if you're listening and watching this right now and you're the one who's struggling, hear me clearly. You are not a burden. You're not broken. You're needed. You can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Hotline Lifeline. You don't have to carry this alone. Know that your story is not finished. The world needs your voice, your gifts, and your light. So stay, because we need more leaders like you. We need humans like you. And so, again, leaders, if you're watching this, I know, again, this is a hard topic, and I appreciate you being here, learning, educating, and so that you're aware and that you can not only help other people, but also help yourselves too. So, that is all I have for today's episode. Again, I know this is really hard and it can be very triggering for a lot of people. And the more we talk about this, the more we learn, the more we are open, the more that we are honest and have these conversations, the more that we can talk about this, educate, and hopefully we can prevent um, less people from doing harm. Again, thank you for watching this episode. If you have any questions or if there's anything else that you feel would be helpful, I do have other videos that may be helpful for you, especially mental health in the workplace. And if you have been impacted by this, if you're a leader and you have been impacted by this and you actually help someone, if you feel comfortable sharing your story, please put down in the comment section. I will add additional resources in the description box for anybody who is going through a hard time, or if you're a leader who is interested in resources, I will add the resources in the description box. So that is all I have for today. Again, take care, um, stay well, stay safe, and take care. All right, bye.